So I don't know if I have God's blessing to offer this, but I always feel like if you make it to church on Spring Forward Sunday, you get like extra dessert in heaven or something. It just has to be, right? I mean, it's, please bless that, I totally think that's something that God is going to do. It's just something every year. We know it's coming, but it always hits you. It hits you hard. If we haven't met, my name is Silverio. If you're watching online, I'm so thankful that you're joining us. And I pastor here at New Song Pearland. We are a community of First Methodist Church in Pearland, Texas. And we are launching this fall. And what I mean by that is we are working together to create community, to create relationships, because we deeply, deeply believe that following Jesus is experienced better when you have people to do it with. And so already this week, these past couple of weeks, we've been doing little things, getting together. The guys went over and threw some hatchets, a week or so ago. The ladies are getting together on Thursday to go to the Rustic Brush. You can find that on Facebook if you're interested in doing that. It's actually a launch into a monthly thing they're going to be doing. John told you about meeting at Blue Monkey next Sunday. And a week or 2 weeks from today, or 2 weeks from yesterday, on the 27th, we're going to gather at the park right here across the street from the sanctuary. We're going to have a breakfast taco egg hunt. And I told you that last week. I found the best breakfast tacos on this side of the Beltway, and I'm not telling you where they are until you come to this egg hunt, right? And you got to bring a friend, and it's meant to meet friends. That's what we're doing, because when we do that and we have our friends that don't have a church meet our friends that have a church, we're opening the door and we say, hey, we want to follow Jesus with you, all right? And so that's what this is all about, and I hope you're as excited as I am about it, because I deeply believe that when we're about that, God moves in our lives in personal ways that we can't even begin to imagine or expect, and it's just an amazing thing. So I'm excited for us, I'm excited for the church, and I'm excited to see what God does in people that we don't even see sitting in the chairs that they're going to be sitting in and gathering with us over coffee and over meals and over all kinds of things in the weeks and in the months to come. We are in week 4 of the Red Letter Challenge. And I hope that you are still tracking along. I know if you're like me and I start working out, first couple of weeks, pretty good. Week 3, a little harder, right? And week 4, I'm starting to fall a little behind. I need some grace. And so if you need grace because you've fallen behind on the Red Letter Challenge, here you go. Here's your grace. Catch up. Just pick up where we are, and then just go back and read some of this stuff when you have a chance. And today we're going to be talking, or this week, the Red Letter Challenge talks about giving, a rhythm of just the followers of Jesus, what giving means. And specifically today, I want to talk about one of Jesus' apparently favorite subjects to talk about, and that's money. It's an odd thing to think about, but if you look up, do a search on the Gospels, the word money shows up over 50 times in the Gospels, right? And we can see, as much as we want money to be something practical in our lives, I mean, we need money to pay for our stuff, and stuff which we need, right? We need our house, we need food, we need clothes. But it doesn't take but a couple experiences in our lives to realize that money it's more than practical. It affects much more than the physical side of us. I'll tell you a story. When Liam, our firstborn, was about 3 or 4 months old, I suddenly found myself unexpectedly without a job and without employment. And so that thing, if you're like me, whenever I first drove Liam home from the hospital, like I literally forgot how to drive, right? It was just like, oh my goodness, there's a kid in the back seat, and you could not have told me any different or set me apart from like the 15-year-old on the learner's permit coming out of the parking lot, right? It was just like, this is real, right? I have a kid in the back seat. And so a few months later, I find myself without a guaranteed paycheck every 2 weeks. And that is absolutely not the worst thing that can happen to a person, but I might as well feel like it is, right? And so all of a sudden, it's not just the money part, but it's the thing that's happening inside. You feel down, you feel depressed, you feel a little helpless, you feel like, what do I do next? And all of these emotions. And let me tell you, I think that's all it takes to realize that money is more than practical to us. It's more than just something functional that we have and that we earn in order to pay for things that we need. If we think about it, we have some of our self-worth tied to our bank accounts. We have some of our security. If I have X amount of dollars, then I'm good. I can go to sleep at night, and I'm just good. If I have X amount of money, I'm happy. I can do stuff that I want, whatever it is. It's our joy, our worth, our security, our peace. And we start making a list, and you realize that all of these things is what God wants to be for us. And at some point in our adult life, maybe it was even before that, money started to creep into that spot. And we found ourselves experiencing just other things that are not practical, that are actually spiritual. And we're giving money a place in our lives that God never intended it for us to put it in. I want to share with you a passage. We're talking about Jesus' words in this red letter challenge. In Matthew 6, if you have your Bible, open it up in Matthew 6, and we're going to read just a few verses. And this is from the Sermon of the Mount. And listen to what Jesus says here. Verse 19. Jesus says this: "Don't store up treasures here on earth, where moths eat them and rust destroys them, and where thieves break in and steal. Store your treasures in heaven, where moths and rust cannot destroy, and thieves do not break in and steal. Wherever your treasure is, there the desires of your heart will also be." You know what message cuts through very clearly here? Especially if we consider that Jesus' entire message is for us to become followers of his life, to do life like he does it, to experience the freedom and the power and the joy that God always intended us to experience in this life. And so when he says we need to store our treasures, we need to put more value, in other words, on what we have in heaven than the value we give the things we have on earth. He's saying we cannot experience heavenly life in Jesus if we're clinging on too hard to our earthly stuff. And so with this, I want to say giving and the practice of consistent and regular giving is the way, it's the exercise that we give ourselves, we give our body, that we give our heart to consistently loosen our grip on our earthly stuff. To consistently place more value on the things of God than the things that we have attained in our lifetime. And there are plenty of ways to give. I want to lift this up. It's not just money. We give of our time, we give of our talents, we give of ourselves. So, and this week in the Red Letter Challenge, we're gonna see these things. But I want to specifically focus on money, because I believe it's, as followers of Jesus, it's important for us to understand the relationship that we have between money and God and money in the church. Money in God and money in the church. And when we practice giving, when we practice this exercise of loosening our grip and literally releasing our hands and saying, this is just a tool, this is not anything more than something practical to pay for our stuff and pay for the things that we need and to do things that God is leading us to do, I believe we're going to experience greater freedom and greater joy and peace in God. So I want to lift up two things. One has to do with worship, and one has to do with the commission and the instructions that God has given us as a church. And let's look at worship first. So giving is a way that we ascribe to God the glory of which He is worthy to receive. You know, every time that we come to worship and we get to the offering time, and you notice, and we say, this is part of our worship. And I want you to know that this isn't just a slick way to say, hey, we got everybody in the room, let's ask people for money. We literally mean it's part of our worship. It's saying to God, you are worthy to receive from the best that I have, and lifting it up before God. Check out what Psalm 96 says. Ascribe to the Lord, all you families of nations. Ascribe to the Lord glory and strength. Ascribe to the Lord the glory due to His name. Bring an offering and come into His courts. Worship the Lord in the splendor of His holiness. Tremble before Him, all the earth. This word ascribe is another way to say a gift or a sign to God. Acknowledge the glory of God. So I love this idea that what we do with our action is literally saying to God, you are worthy of the name that you have. Think about the names that we give God. We say, God, you are powerful. So when we take our offerings and lift it to God and say, you are so powerful that I'm not afraid to give from what I have because you're powerful and you're worthy of that name. We call God a provider, right? And we say, God, you're our provider. And so when we give from what we have, we say, you are worthy of that name. Because whenever I need, you're, as provider, are going to fulfill. You are worthy of being called those names. And so it brings to my mind that the cycle of worship, it's always assigning to God what belongs to God, even from the best that we have. So we take from the earth. We take, back then when they had crops and they had, see the Old Testament, they would bring the first fruits to God. From whatever season they had, they would bring it to God, the very first thing that they would grow. And say, this belongs to you, and you are worth more than that. And as you consistently did that, you're being reminded, whether it was a good season or a bad season, that you were being provided for by God. And it is when that cycle breaks, then idolatry starts to become an issue in our life. Think about that. If we're literally taking from the ground and saying, this that I have earned, this that I have grown, this that I have built, whatever it is that we did, we're taking that and offering to God a portion of that and saying, you're more worthy of this. You're worthy of your name. But if I break the cycle and I look down and say, no, let me enjoy this instead, what am I doing? I'm beginning to worship that. I'm beginning to focus on that. I am not reminding my soul that I have a creator. I'm not reminding my body that I have a provider. I'm not reminding anyone that there is a God that's all powerful that gives me what I need when I need it. But if I continue the cycle and I offer to God what is God's and say, you are worthy to receive this from the best that I have, we continue to give God glory, and we continue to make space in our lives for us to be bearers of God's glory. There's a story in Luke 21 Very short story, but very powerful. And Jesus is at the temple, and he's witnessing these people that are coming and bringing their offerings to the temple. And this is what it says. While Jesus was in the temple, he watched the rich people dropping their gifts in the collection box. Then a poor widow came by and dropped in 2 small coins. I tell you the truth, Jesus said. This poor widow has given more than all the rest of them, for they have given a tiny part of their surplus, but she, poor as she is, has given everything she has. So this is the example I want to give of what I read here. A lot of you have kids or had kids or have grandkids. And it's not just my kids. I guarantee you this is like a universal experience. When your child is eating like a dessert that is way too big for them, right? And there's no way they're going to finish it, but they have a go at it, and they basically eat all the good parts. You know where I'm going with this, right? So if it's a cake, they already wiped that frosting clean. I mean, and when they're done with it, what do? They bring it to you, and they say, here, I don't want it anymore. You have it. And you look at this thing, and you're like, oh, and it's got slobber all over it. All the good parts are gone. And you're like, you're kind of tossed between like guilt and duty. Should I eat it, let it go to waste, or throw it away? And you're like, why? Right? And so this is kind of like just giving God of our surplus. I mean, I'm going to ask you this question very honestly. When your kid does that, do you feel very worthy? Or do you feel like you have an obligation now to figure out what to do with this piece of pie or cake or ice cream that is all slobbered on and all the good parts are gone? But what happens to you if your kid, and you know your kid well, you know what they like, you know the candy bars or the meal, you know what, that makes them happy. And let's just say it's a candy bar, right? And before they slobber on it, before they go at it, they open that candy bar and see you there and break you off a piece and say, here, Daddy, have a piece. And you know how much they love that candy. How do you feel? And it's very likely they'd say, no, it's okay, you can eat it. But how does that make you feel? Does that make you feel worthy? I mean, you hide that experience in your heart. You're like, oh. I mean, after you do like oh yeah, I'm doing something right as a parent, right? You give yourself like a high five, and you should, right? But you feel worthy. That wasn't a good self-high five. I'm not good at self-high five. I realize that. I'll practice. You feel worthy. You feel celebrated. Give you another example. If you receive a gift that is obviously a re-gift, like that person didn't want it, and like, I'm just going to give it to Johnny, right? Like, here you go, Johnny. And you know, or they just grab you, like when you go to Christmas, right? And the stores put out like the packages in front, they're just like, so that you don't even have to think, you just grab something and take it and pay for it. And you know that's one of those packages, right? Do you feel very worthy? But if you receive something that somebody obviously sacrificed their time, sacrificed their resources to obtain, so that they can then present it to you, say, you are important to me. Or they baked you something, or they did something out of their talent that you know it cost them something. That action brought you glory. That action made you feel glorious. And this is what offering is to God. It's not that God is poor, God is rich. But when we take and we say, before I slobber on it and leave you the leftovers, I am giving you something you're worthy, because you are powerful. You are a good God. You are faithful. You have never let me down. And so the best that I have, I am giving it to you. So this is what we say when we give. We say to God, you are worth more than the best that I have. You are worth more than money. And friends, our hearts need to say that constantly. Because otherwise, our hearts will be convinced of the lie that money is what we need in our life. Money is what we need for happiness. Money is what we need for security. Money is what we need for peace, and so on down the line. Our hearts need to say this constantly. So we give as an act of worship. Now, we also give as an act of obedience to God's commission to us. Giving is a way we empower our obedience to the Great Commission. Now, next week, I'm going to talk more in depth about the Great Commission that Jesus gives us. But I want to make a connection here. I want to take you to John 20, verse 1 and 2. As he spoke, he showed them the wounds in his hands and in his side. They were filled with joy when they saw the Lord. Again he said, "Peace be with you. As the Father has sent me, I am sending you." What is Jesus sending us to do? What is his one instruction? It's to go out and make disciples of Jesus. That's his one instruction. And in our mission statement, we've translated that to simply saying, we lead others to Jesus. And you've heard me say on more than one occasion that when that ceases to be true of us, we ought to shut the building down. We ought to close it. We ought to sell it, and maybe we ought to just level the place and build a taco stand, because tacos are good, right? But if we are obedient to Jesus, then we take this seriously. That we exist because there are people that do not know Jesus yet, and we are here because Jesus says, you go and find them. And I shared this with you last week, a brilliant sermon that I heard with my wife on sort of a sermon on YouTube kind of thing, where the preacher said, never in the Bible does it say built and they'll come, right? So they can come and see what you're doing. It says go and find. So that is our instruction. And so everything that we do is with that movement. We go and find, like the shepherd that left the 99 to go and find that one sheep, so that one sheep can be brought back and reunited with the 99. That is what we do. So our money, it has something to do with this. And the best way or illustration that I can think of to explain this is in terms of a ladder. So all of us, even when we're together, we have a limited reach. I have a little picture that I found, and it's and what I'm intending, and he's reaching. That little person is reaching for something. So we all have a limited reach based on our capacity, based on our time, based on all of it. It's just natural. So what do we need? We need a ladder. When we get a ladder, that reach extends far beyond our natural capacity, right? And that is how money is related to our commission. When we bring our offering, when we support the church that we are part of, our money can go push our reach beyond our physical capacity. That is the function of it. And it's important that we understand that. And it's important that we are good stewards of that. We are very blessed in this church. We literally consider our financial committee a ministry of the church. These people that are blessed with looking at spreadsheets and making sure everything is accounted for and lines up, that is a ministry of the church, because we take that seriously. Because money is here and it's in our possession. We bring it together so that the mission that God has given us can extend far beyond that. That's how we need to understand it. Now, it works the other way too. So I have a picture of a ladder. And I told you the money is a ladder, but what do you see in that picture? Just a ladder. Is that ladder doing anything? What is it just doing? It's just existing, right? And so I say this, it works the other way too, because we can get in the mindset that, all I do is give. I don't need to do anything else. I just bring money, somebody else can do it. But that's that we just bring our money, then it's just a ladder just sitting there doing nothing. What do we need? We need to get on top of it. The money that we bring, and we say to God, we bring it because you're worthy of our gifts, we're worthy of our tithes and offerings. It's propelling our work to reach others for Jesus. The money isn't going to do it in and of itself. The ladder needs a person to stand on it. The ladder needs a group of people to say, we are committed to this mission of reaching other people for Jesus. And we're getting the ladder, but we're getting up on the ladder to reach. It's our hands that have to do the reaching. It's our bodies and our person and everything we are that has to do the reaching. So when God gives us the resources that He gives us, we understand as Christians that every good gift comes from God. And even though it's our time and our effort and our sweat that builds what we have, it's ultimately, it all leads back to God as the source of all of those things. And God is entrusting us with those resources. You know, we don't have a hard time understanding that when we have kids, God is entrusting those kids to us, right? That we raise them in the ways of Jesus. That's why we have baptism. That's why we have children's ministry. But we don't often think of money the same way. God is entrusting us with those resources, that we use them effectively to provide for what we need. And we use them effectively also to do the things He asks us to do, like reach others that need to know Jesus. And when we do that, we're honoring the trust that God has placed on us. We are saying to God, we are worthy of being trusted with what you give us. Malachi 3:10 is one of those verses that if you've never heard it, it is a mantra of God's faithfulness with this thing. And listen to what Malachi 3:10 says. It says, bring all the tithes into the storehouse, so there will be enough food in my temple. If you do, says the Lord of heaven's army, I will open the windows of heaven for you. I will pour out a blessing so great you won't have enough room to take it in. Try it. Put me to the test. I want to say this again. God's not poor. I mean, do we agree on that? Is God poor? God's not poor. So does God need our money? God doesn't need our money. But God is also faithful. And God asks us to reflect that faithfulness back to God. And so all you see happening here, it's not one of those financial, tricks. It's not like how do you get rich as a Christian. It's not how do you trick God into giving you more stuff. It is simply responding to God's faithfulness with our own faithfulness. And when God is faithful, we respond with our faithfulness. And when we respond with our faithfulness, God continues to be faithful. That is the cycle that God is inviting us to. What I want to ask as we close this morning, just a couple of reflection questions. And the first one is this: how is my relationship with money right now? I invite you to ask this honest question. Is it an idol or is it a tool in your hands? I think an easy way to just begin to answer that is what would happen in your heart, what would happen in your mind if tomorrow you logged into your bank account or your bank app on your phone and saw a bunch of zeros? Like, where does stuff go? We can be honest about that. Most of us would be like freaking out. Is it an idol or is it a tool? Do I find my worth in it? Or do I know it's just simply something that I possess while I'm on this earth to do the things that I need to do? Because when I die, I ain't taking my money with me. It ain't coming with me. There's not a portal in heaven for that. Is it a tool or is it an idol? Here's the second question I want you to reflect on. If you're not using your money to empower the work of your church, why not? Why not? And if you're married, I think this is worth a conversation with your spouse. Why am I not doing this yet? And for some of us, that might mean that we are locked into some responsibilities financially that are over our head, and we might need some help to get uncluttered. I have a friend who's a financial advisor sitting in this room. He'd love to help you with that. To free us from these burdens that are constantly costing us stress, so that we can begin to practice what Jesus is saying. Let go of your grip on money. Let go of those things. And so what might be a part of that conversation is a plan. So if you're not currently supporting the ministry of your church, if that's not yet a practice, and that's not yet a way in which you're making sure that you're not storing your treasures on earth, but you are living the heavenly life, come up with a plan. Look at your checks, look at your bank account and say, look, I'm not yet practicing this, but maybe I can start this much, and be faithful to it. Remember, Jesus noticed not the amount of the poor widow, Jesus noticed her faithfulness. And as you are able, increase that faithfulness. And that's what we just saw in Malachi 3. The more you increase that faithfulness, you're going to experience God's faithfulness in your own life. I want to invite you to seriously have that conversation and that reflection this week. Friends, tonight, or this morning, I'll see what Spring Forward does to me. This morning, I want us to just reflect as we come to the table, that we not have idols before God, that we have nothing in God's place. And if you're sensing the Holy Spirit tugging your heart, saying, yeah, that's gotten in the way, I want to invite you, as you just prepare your hearts to take communion, to ask God for forgiveness, to repent and say, God, you've given me this tool and I've made it an idol. I want to invite you to just close your eyes and have that conversation with God right now. And we're going to come to the table. Lord, bless us and bless these prayers and help us to hear your voice.